Ready? Okay.
Ready?
Awesome. Okay. Well, I am so excited to have these two powerhouses with us today. There are no words to describe what it feels like to have someone like Marina Malaguti and then Uzo Akatobi. Just last week, we ran through some of the material that we plan on talking with all of you today, and it was just pure magic. So I'm really excited to chat about today's topic, which is helping bridging the gap between men and women in the workplace. Right. And it was Marina and I, maybe a month ago, we talked about what we could be doing to serve our communities and kind of bring rich content that's exciting, that's new and innovative, maybe a little bit risque in some ways. And we thought, okay, well, what better topic than to discuss how to help men understand women in the workplace? So Marina, why did you think it was a good idea for us to talk about this today?
I mean, I still have my doubts. We'll see how this goes. But Uzo, I feel like Uzo is a great partner in this conversation. I just really hope, at the end of the day, male and females have to work together. In the modern day and age, like we are part of the workforce, and increasingly so. And so, finding ways to collaborate better, I think it's awesome. Like, why not?
Absolutely. And, we handpicked Uzo to be part of this conversation today. So Uzo is actually the VP of HR and in employee relations, essentially.
Inclusion diversity. Yeah.
For Prologis, which is the largest, commercial real estate company basically in the world, which is huge.
Yeah.
And, you and I, we've had some really interesting conversations around I&D. And obviously you being a man, you hold a different perspective as well, along with, I&D initiatives.
Yeah, for sure. To your point, men and women have to work together. But from my perspective, just in HR, seeing systems, you can see how some of these inequities and some of these things happen. I mean, when you know how the sausage is made, you can see it. And a lot of it is systemic. Not even people trying to do one another. So it's an interesting conversation to have because my perspective is that it can be solved if you look at it. Some of the dynamic issues can be solved if you look at it from a macro or system level and start addressing change from there.
Yeah, before we get into that, Uzo, I was wondering if you could tell us a story about who is Uzo, whether it's current or something relevant from your upbringing. That would be awesome.
Yeah. So, obviously it's a name like Uzo. It's like, I'm not a John Smith, so I gotta probably come from somewhere. But my parents are both immigrants from Nigeria.
Yeah.
They've been in the country for quite some time. I was born in Texas, but spent a lot of my time growing up in Colorado with them. And, as I think most first generation kids will tell you, when your parents come here, they don't play around and come here to play any games. They're riding a lot on, your success and those kind of things. My parents were no different. So academic achievement and those kind of things were important growing up. But I went to school in Nebraska, believe it or not, on a track and field scholarship. And but it was a really transformative experience for me because I didn't realize that people were living, that differently, from the suburbs of Denver. And I had people tell me for the first time in my life, I didn't even know, this was even a thing, but some people were like, you're the first Black person I've ever spoken to in my entire life. And these people are 20 years old, right? I'm like, how can you go 2 decades with that? But it's a way to orient you on the different experiences that are in this country and teaches you a certain amount of patience, tolerance, and acceptance. But I got a lot of energy for community work and change from my experience at Hastings College in Nebraska, and so I majored in HR, and I thought I knew what it was in college, and then got out and got an HR gig and kind of worked my way up from there. And it turns out that it's way different than anything I ever thought it was.
Right.
Because we are at the forefront of organizational changes that a lot of people don't have the opportunity to be able to be able to do. And so, my career, it was kind of an accidental career, I guess, and like couldn't anticipate, but now that I'm in it, you know, and I bring my background and as someone who's always been kind of the other, you know, in a lot of spaces that I live in, to my role, and that's where I think I can understand a little bit inclusion and diversity from a strategic standpoint.
And we know you have an interesting perspective about modern HR management, so I will definitely ask you about that.
Yeah.
I was wondering, like, what was it like at 20 years old being told that you were the first Black person they ever talked to? Being first generation immigrant, meaning like you're actually an American, right? Like
Yeah.
I immigrated from a different country. I was not born American. And how does that experience different from what maybe you're experiencing now?
Yeah, it was because I almost felt like in order to go 20 years without talking to a Black person, you have to like be dodging them. Like, how do you like, how does that happen? But you know, what it got me thinking about was just at how vastly different people's lives were, because you kind of think, I think some of the things that we experience in social media is the sheer shock of how some people, that we're products of our environment, and some environments create, you know, a lived experience that we can't even understand. Like, I didn't know people were living this way, and that's kind of how I felt, you know, there when. But if you think about it, it makes sense. If you've never left kind of rural Nebraska, then that would be your experience. And so therefore, how can you possibly have the experiences that I have growing up in a place that was a little more diverse, a lot more diverse, and it wasn't even, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, even where I grew up could be considered not very diverse, but compared to Nebraska, it was. So so that was shocking, and you just have to try to figure out how to process that. But when you have friends, like you have people that you care about and they're friends, and they might tell you something ignorant based off of their experience,
yeah.
It really challenges you to not move into a space of immediate hatred, because, you know, I know I don't hate this person, you know, but they're saying this ignorant thing. And so, you know, that there's a difference between ignorance, right, and racism. And on the ignorant side, you can actually work with that,
yeah.
and help people through that. But it is a lot of energy. It is exhausting. But depends on what you're anchored in and what your outcomes are anchored in. But I've always been a solution-oriented, outcome-driven person. And so if I feel like change should be made, then I want to do that. So I got involved in like the multicultural student union and student government at Hastings College. Just, I didn't know where that energy was coming from, but I understand it now in hindsight, of trying to make kind of systemic changes where we saw, you know, an opportunity to be able to do that, especially when it comes to understanding one another. And so I've carried that energy on into my professional life, because the corporate world is such an artificially created, not real, you know, there's just so many things in it that just don't make any sense in terms of the way we treat each other and act and those kind of things. And so when you have an opportunity to bring systemic change there, you know, I look back at that experience in college, and there's a little bit of that even in the corporate world, because it's like, I came in and I was like one of the only Black people right at Hastings College, and it's different. But I imagine people of color walking into a, you know, corporate environment where you have, you know, all these rules and all these hierarchies and all these experiences. Imagine if you're a woman, and a woman software developer, and you're dropped in the middle of a group of just programmers, right? These guys, you know, that
was me a few years back.
Yeah, you're right. You're like, you know, and they treat you like you're like an alien, you know, like what, you know, or that they don't understand the differences of your experience, and so they treat you like you don't exist, or that you have to get on board with this if you're going to be one of us. Yeah. And that's kind of a strange experience. And I think I can look back at my time in Nebraska and say there's probably some similarities, right? And that kind of experience. So I can put myself in that person's shoes and say, how can you make an environment that's truly inclusive, that allows someone to be able to say, no, you can be the only woman on this group of software developers, and just be who you are. And we have and people understand you have a different lived experience, and we actually embrace that as a culture add versus you need to fit in our culture, because there's no way I was going to fit in total in the environment I was in Nebraska. I never did. I just found a way to be myself, and then I graduated and left, you know, and didn't have to feel like I had to change to be what people expected.
Nice. So to me, it sounds like almost because it happened to you, you're super empathetic to also other people's experiences now.
Yeah, yes.
Which is like the most amazing thing for an HR person to be, right? That's what we want them to be.
Yes. Yeah.
So what is HR, and like, what about HR, traditional HR, doesn't jive with what you think HR should be, or you practice, right, as an HR manager?
Yeah, I think traditional HR, people approach it as, I'm an agent of the state, right? Like, so whatever the state is, you know, there's these operational expectations, you know, there's all these things that you assign to HR, like, you know, we do performance reviews and we do this, and a lot of HR folks will copy each other and think this is the rule book, and you know, this employment law 6787, you know, you start doing this, and like we're walking around just seeing what rules people are breaking, and some people are wired that way to really dig that operational type of work and keep people in line and you know, keep people in check. But what I found as you look at other organizations, sometimes you wonder, there's certain organizations that have had these pervasive, like, sexual harassment, you know, situations. Like, how in the world have you paid out several $1 million of settlements on the same person sexually harassing people over and over and over again? I would ask myself, who in the world is at the helm here, who's facilitating, you know, who's writing these checks, and as if these checks are a solution? Who's in their HR department? Not that we exist to people what to do and not, but I mean, at some points, where's the moral compass of these organizations? And so as I was growing up in my HR career and looking at the opportunity I have, I see everything. I see everything in this organization like nobody sees it, you know? And oftentimes I'm the only one, or my team are the only people that see these systemic problems. And sometimes leaders in the seat don't even see it. They don't see their own biases. They don't see how they, you know, you might hire a bunch of women, but you never promote them. And then, you know, you go to a room and you're like, I don't know why we don't have any senior women as leaders. Well, actually, I know why. I can see it, actually. The system doesn't work because at some point, there's bias that's allowed to come in from higher level people or higher level authorities. So you got to stop that if you want to do that. And then you have to have the courage to speak up. I've always said, if you want to be a really good HR professional, you have to be willing to lose your job. And because you might be the only person that's like, this is not right, and I'm not going to facilitate this. I'm not a propagandist. Like, this doesn't feel right, doesn't look right. But you have to have the mindset of, you know, you have to be rooted in a space of organizational effectiveness, not an agent of the state. So I want the organization to be a good organization, a great place to work. How do we do that? Well, we can't have leaders that are not inclusive. That doesn't make it a great place to work. We have to have goals and expectations, and you have to raise the bar of expectations every day. So how do you do that? And how do you have leaders that can help people raise their level of performance? How do you have crucial conversations with people? Because sometimes you got to keep it real with people about their performance and that, but you can do so in an empathetic, supportive way. But at the end of the day, we have a job to do. So let's make sure that we do that and come through for the company, you know. And so I think when HR people are flexible and they understand that they are here to make a great organization, which might mean the highest level leader in this organization is doing wrong, and someone needs to tell this person that, and everyone's afraid, and you're the only one, and maybe you're afraid too, but you know, someone's got to say it. And if you walk me out of here, then fine, do it. You know, I'll call your bluff on it, and it's going to be a heck of a story to tell, right? If I got walked out, I tried to hold the company to a higher moral standard or whatever in there. But the other part to HR too is we can be completely creative about, you know, I look at HR like the entire employee life cycle. You've got recruiting, you've got talent acquisition, you have talent development, and how many cool things and creative things can you do? I don't want to just follow what everybody else does. I want to just look at what Google does, and I don't want to be Google. I want someone to write a white paper about us, about what we're doing, you know? And so let's be creative, take ideas, crowdsource ideas, use data to make decisions, and experiment, not be afraid to experiment. And again, in HR, I can do this, right? I have the ability to be able to just move autonomously throughout an organization and see an opportunity to create a program, use data to drive the decision making, but stand it up, put people in it. And there's not many organizations in it, not many groups and organizations that have the autonomy to do that. I think the best HR are here.
Quick fire question. Are people innately capable, or do we need to teach them how to be inclusive?
Both. I think some people, because what inclusivity is in an organization will depend on the outcomes that you want. So for example, I believe in the concept of inclusive leadership, which is a set of skills that a leader, I think, should have. And I can look at the data in my organization and say, this is why I think it is, because this is what our people are asking for. That might look different for another organization. So at some point, an organization is going to have to foster consistently foster an environment of inclusion. You can't just be like, look at our mission statement, we're inclusive, just read it and then you'll know it. So you have to constantly calibrate people. And again, we're coming from different experiences, so not everyone's gonna know how to do it. There is an innate part of it, but most people I think are capable, but some people for different reasons don't believe in the concept of inclusion, whether that is, you know, the leader who's been doing it for 20 years, you can't tell this person anything about anything. Nothing against any human. I just am stubborn and I'm not changing for anything. Some people it's political. If I lean on that, then that then challenges my personal beliefs. I believe it does, and so I'm not going to do that. So that feels too left wing or progressive. So I'm gonna reject that. And so when people are intentionally rejecting it because it challenges their value system, you can send them to all the training classes you want. It's not going to work, and that means you hired the wrong person. And so you have to think about what are the values that you need as an organization, because not everyone's going to have those values. Some people will be super smart,
right?
Not values, right?
Right, or you have outgrown the current culture, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah.
I know you talk about IND versus DNI.
Yes.
We talked about it a little bit before, but I really want you to say, like, in practice, why do we care about inclusivity first?
Yeah.
What is the difference?
Yeah, it's a good question. And so with Prologis, we purposely put the I before the D, because in a sense, I don't want to simplify the process, but in a sense, diversity is easy, although diversity goes far beyond your physical traits, your gender identity, your racial identity, certainly. But in a sense, it's easier because you can always talk somebody or con somebody, however you want to look at it, into joining your organization, tell whatever kind of story you want. You know, you have all kinds of, you have a We Are the World, like career page, look at all this, look at all our traits. And, you know, when people talk about Google, it's like exercise balls where you can sit on them and you can do all these cultures. You can entice diversity to join your organization, right? Just entice anybody. But the question is because inclusion to me is a business imperative, because it optimizes the talent that you have in your organization. If you go and hire all this diverse talent, and not just diverse looking, but they have all these strengths and they come from these different environments.
Give us the X-Men story for sure.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Like, you know, I use the X-Men as imagery in that they're an extremely diverse team with these incredible powers, but they're all flawed, just like all of us, right? And when an individual, one of them goes out to try to defeat the bad guys, they usually get their butts kicked. Not enough. But you put and what are there? I don't know how many X-Men there are. There's like, I don't know, 20, 50, you know, I don't read comic books anymore, but there's a lot of them. And there's different combinations of them that get put together, given a particular problem. And then you take these diverse skills and all these, and all their strengths and their weaknesses, and they go together and they win, you know, and they go out and win. So as a manager, if we go and find all these diverse people, these X-Men, if you will. And then I give them to you and you say, Wolverine, you're going to go in the mail room because I started in the mail room and that's how you do this and that. And Storm, stop flying, man, because we don't fly here. We punch and kick. That's all we do here. Oh, but she can control the weather, right? Like she control. No. We don't.
We don't like weather.
That's not what we do here. It's wait in line. Why are you promoting Cyclops? Well, he has shown the skills to do this and this and that. Well, why don't you promote, Jean Grey or Jubilee? Well, they just have to do, they're doing a really great job. They just have to keep working and all that. You're wasting the talent that you have on your team. You're completely wasting. So what is the point of recruiting diversity if you do not have it in an environment that can actually utilize these people for all the strengths and all those different things? And if you don't have leaders who even know who's working for them, if I give you the X-Men and you're like, you're a just a marketing specialist. Well, actually, it's Wolverine, actually, and he has incredible powers and incredible. Now you're a marketing specialist, and this we're not defined by our titles, right? We're defined by the stuff that we bring. So unleash that, right? And that, to me, if you have a truly inclusive environment, it's an environment that's able to unleash the uniqueness of our humanity as opposed to a non-inclusive environment. Because if you bring diversity into an environment where you have to assimilate from the machine and line up and drink the Kool-Aid, that diverse talent's going to go out the door, and hopefully they don't find themselves on your glass door to leave a review or something like that, and then you have to backtrack and do all these different things. So it's important. Inclusion, to me, you don't even bother with diversity if you're not even willing to scrutinize your systems and your environment to get to a more inclusive place. Don't even do it. That's why inclusion should be first.
So good.
Really interesting. Even like obviously being in recruiting myself, when we talk to candidates that are A+ players, if they don't feel like that their strengths will be seen and really be leveraged beyond just, okay, if it's an excellent Java developer, great, but what other experiences or what other skill sets do you bring to the table? If they don't feel like they're being seen, they check out. They even disengage from the interview process. And those are the candidates, the A+ candidates, they end up just dropping the interview or ghosting the interview process because they don't feel validated they don't early on.
You're not just a Java programmer, right? Like people have gotten to their paths in different ways. And if you present an interview process where it's like you clearly have to assimilate to the machine, where the interviewer is so robotic, so or as people, I know you've probably seen it from a recruiting standpoint, a manager stumbles in 5 minutes before an interview. They don't even know what is on this person's resume, and they start asking them super generic questions. Just to, I call it the idiot test. So let me just make sure you're not an idiot, and then we'll just endorse you for a hire. It gives no respect to the uniqueness of the individual there. Do your homework before you go in an interview. If you don't want to do that, totally fine. You're not going to be a hiring manager. Get out of this, and go do your other work. We can find other people who are, that's why I think people need to be trained to do interviews so that they look for those unique qualities. You have to hire for what you can't teach. And if you don't pay attention to your process, you're just going to hire that typical culture fit, right? Like the people who feel right to me and my biases, as opposed to someone who's going to really add to your culture. Like, wow, we don't have that capability on our team. I love how that person solves problems. The rest of us don't know how. I need this person on my team. We need that person. Like, that's the way that the interview process should go, but you got to pay attention,
And willingness to identify your gap. Right?
Yes.
I can't
loud, right? Don't tell yourself you're pretty, right? Like, we're great, we're high performing people. Look at the logo, right? Like, look, I think it speaks for itself. No, I don't know how your team operates. I don't know how you lead. So, if a leader cannot outwardly tell you the skill gaps on their team, I don't know about that.
That's interesting. I love it.
Yeah.
How does women in the workplace, obviously, I have to say, I'm definitely a feminist.
Hmm.
in terms of like, you know, believing that women can have the choice of doing whatever they want, whether it's stay home or work or
Hmm.
anything in the middle, right? And I have suffered my fair share of sexism at the workplace.
No doubt.
What is like your perspective on coming into corporate as a Black male with your name, right? We talked about the
Mhm.
particularity of your name, looking the way you do, and then and having to work in mostly male-dominated industry, but mostly white, as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, the corporate environment is such a artificial and sterile sort of environment. People come in and then you're expected to absorb these norms that are foreign to you. Some of them make sense, and a lot of them don't. You know, a lot of them are built off of historical, ideas of what success is in the workplace, and we use loaded terms like culture fit and leadership presence to try to put people into a box and that. And so when I've come in, it's just been, I often find myself in the room with people who are not, where I'm just so completely different than them. And so I feel, as you're going to get a lot, you hear this a lot from women, certainly people of color, where you feel this pressure to just be a freaking superhero out of the gate because you feel like you're going to be held to a different standard, and sometimes it certainly feels that way. But then when you do a good job, you hear things that you know people will, because you break the mold or you break their understanding of what they think you are, then you are now a superhero in their mind, and so you'll hear terms like that are not used for other people, like, oh, hey, you're so articulate. And am I articulate? Yeah, on purpose I am. But oftentimes when you unpack that, it's in relation to what they believe I was gonna be, or what they think Black people are. And so it's like, well, you're not, so you're the other. You're not like that, you're not like them. You're like us. You're like us. You're not like them. It's like, no, I am like them. It's just you don't know them, right?
I don't see. I don't have that luxury. Like I have an accent. I look where
Right.
I look, right? Like so. There's no way out. But I'm sure sounding the way you sound, which is like you definitely have an American accent, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, I can see how they may be surprised to meet you in person.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. There was when I used to do HR consulting, because you communicate, when the type of consulting I was doing is mostly email, and I would converse with people on email, and then I would do a site visit. So this first time they actually met me, and you could tell when someone, like, because what does an Uzo look like, right? Like, and I remember one of my clients was told me, he's like, hey man, can I just, I don't know if this is appropriate, but I just want to tell you something. It's like, right? He was like, I thought you were a short, like, Asian man coming in. So when you walked in, if there was an opposite of an Asian man, I don't know if there is, you were it. So I didn't even understand, because you introduced yourself and I didn't even I was like, yeah, that's right. You know what I mean? And so, these stereotypes that come in, and when you're a woman or a person of color, these stereotypes are placed on you. And it's weird because in an environment where this is your livelihood and the way you sustain yourself, you're just trying to be seen as other people, and you don't want to have to be this other thing. You don't have to do this proof of concept being yourself when you walk in. But people often find themselves in that spaces, and when in those spaces, and when you don't see other people that look like you almost have no frame of reference. So you're like, okay, I guess I'll do this, and I guess I'll do that. And oftentimes you see in my industry where we have brokers, right? The brokers who are bringing customers to us as a large commercial real estate company. A lot of the environment in there is a lot of drinking, a lot of going on the golf course, and
Bro culture.
the cigars, bro culture, whiskeys, and talking about whatever, and that's not comfortable. That's not a super comfortable environment for everyone. And by the way, they all look the same as well. And so you feel like you have to match that. So maybe if you don't drink, or maybe if you're introverted, or you're a woman, you don't feel comfortable, staying out until 2 a.m. doing whatever it is these guys are doing, right? In those environments. And then when you have leaders who hire on this, right? Like they say, well, she was great, but I don't know if I don't know if she'll like these broker events, I don't know if she'll be able to assimilate that. So let's go get a candidate that can, that I can picture in this environment. So what did you just do? You took something completely unrelated to the job. Who cares about these
Qualification.
being able to smoke cigars? And I don't care about that. We didn't put it on the or on the job posting, but yet we're hiring
For
to
that.
that. We're trying to hire people that are acceptable to these people
Yeah.
as a qualification. And that is a recipe for hiring the same person over and over and over again.
Yeah.
It's a recipe for not being inclusive. You can't say hey, look, I get you're a woman, but you got to act like me if you want to, that's ridiculous, right? So
Yeah, I have gotten that so many times. And I was telling you that I've had to implement practices that just make me seem like less harmful in the workplace. Like if I don't always wear my ring, I need to make sure I have my ring on when I'm in meetings or when I'm meeting new people, just to provide a sense of like just stability to others.
You're trying to identify yourself in a way that you feel is comfortable for them.
To them.
Yeah.
Which
right?
sucks, right? Because
like same reason as a African American male, I know that if I put my hat on backwards, my baseball cap on backwards, and I walk into certain spaces, people think, they're not thinking that guy's probably the vice president of HR. They have no idea. But what they do know is he looks like my nightmares, and so let me just cross that street over there, right? And it's incredible that you do one thing, and how it feels. And so sometimes, and I've even said this, I even have done this myself, where I'll put on my college shirt in certain places, and then the other day I thought about like, what am I doing? Like, why do I feel like I have to do this? Just like you putting on your ring, like, why am I doing it?
Yeah.
I don't care what people think about me, but hopefully that doesn't bring harm to you, in terms of walking into an environment and either physical harm or in the workplace harm, and such that you don't wear your wedding ring and then some guy sitting across from you one-on-one and they think
it's a different experience.
Start hitting on you because they think it's acceptable. But if it was me, they wouldn't be hitting on me. Here's the KPIs for the thing and this and that and that. And then if it's you, it's hey, so what do you do on the weekend? Like this is, we talk about work all the time. Let's talk about, like ourselves. And so it feels cordial, but the reason he's doing that is because he might be trying to find an in. And that is something you have to think about as a woman, right? And it's unfortunate as men that some of us feel like we take the work context out of it and we feel at liberty to be able to just, shoot my shot. I'm just going to shoot my shot and see, even if it's not an appropriate place to do it. And you wouldn't do that if I were sitting there, right?
And like for me, like obviously being, director of business development for Objective Paradigm, the expectation is that obviously prior to COVID that I am out and about and at networking events and taking clients out for dinners and, you know what I mean? And in my past, I have heard, just in my career, I have heard where I've landed substantial deals and then hearing from somebody else at a prior company that, oh, well, you only got that deal because you have a pretty face.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Completely devaluing.
It makes me so angry.
Anything that you brought, because they didn't ask like, hey, how did you land that deal? Like, what was that? They were like, oh, you just, come on.
You're just pretty.
Right. Right.
Prove myself where I'm like, it's not like, I don't want, like, am I naive to knowing that, okay, does someone take a meeting with me because, okay, she's pretty? Sure. I'm sure that happens. Mm-hmm. But I would like to believe that it's because of my sales ability. It's my ability to connect with people and show them that there's value in the solutions that I provide. I've even worked for a VP before where we were at a networking event. We were with all of these C-suites. And I only had one drink that night. And the next day when I had my one-on-one with her, she was like, like drinking is important in this game. You got to get used to like being comfortable drinking a lot. And I was like, and she was the same person who told me you got to learn how to golf, if you want to do good in business development and recruiting. Yeah. Like, it made me so mad. I'm like, no, I don't have to. Why?
Right.
Like, still do a good job and outbeat every single person on this team. I hate that feeling. It's always
it's terrible because what you're doing is you're putting because we wonder why things don't change. And the reason why it doesn't change is no matter what, let's say that company you're referring to had inclusion, diversity initiatives, and all this. And let's say I'm the I&D person for your company. Like, Uzo, I can't wait to see what programs you create. Meanwhile, you have a leader that's having that level of conversation with you, that's saying, hey, just so you know, because really what she's saying is, just so you know, who you are matters less than what you appear to be to these people, because these people have money and we want their money. Instead of the organization backing people up, and if you have a client that's like, hey, you know, Sasha, she doesn't seem like she has fun and, you know, at work. And as an organization, I would say, wait, hold on, like, what are we talking about here? Because I think that meeting went well. Talk to me about why it didn't go well. Oh, well, you know, it went well, but, you know, I just felt like, you know, maybe she wasn't engaged and had, but talk to me about why didn't it feel like that? And you keep asking questions until it gets to the irrelevant thing. And say, as a company, we actually, drinking, not drinking, we didn't hire these people on that. You asked us to provide you outstanding service. We believe in our product. We believe in our people. We don't make our people drink. If that's a thing for you, I get concerned about values alignment between our organization and your organization. I assume that your organization is more than just your ability to drink. Am I right? And you ask questions that are inarguable, right? Because when we allow people to create these irrelevant things, like, oh, she doesn't drink, who cares? So make me care about that, you know, as a company. But instead, most of our instincts as a company is like, ooh, our client said, ooh, Sasha, you know, you should, you know, drink more. Instead of flip that, you know, challenge that person on that. We believe in our product. If you want a worse product with you know, skeptical people, like with people that are with questionable, you know, whatever, look, that's not what we do here, right? You know, so, but I'm assuming that's not what you're saying, right? Right? You know?
Sasha had a good point about like challenging, like, what does it mean? Like, how does challenging, like the same way Uzo brought it in, like, what does it mean to have challenges between men and women at the workplace? What was your thing about it, Sasha? Was it like about conflict?
Oh, well, this is something that Marina and I were talking about, where I thought, okay, well, you know, and I see it in recruiting as well. There's different subcultures that are happening, right? Like counterculture, subcultures that are happening in all different kinds of systems. And two primary ones are the female and male, you know,
Yeah.
of the workplace, right? And then Marina and I, we were talking and we said, okay, well, what are the like, it would be interesting to talk about the relationships between how men experience competition in the workplace or challenges in the workplace versus how women experience competition or challenges in the workplace. And then we have a list of that we were hoping to talk to you about, so we can start there. You know,
Yeah.
what do you think? I mean, as a man, because this is interesting for females right now, or anyone watching, when you're a man in the workplace, does it feel like you're going to war? Like, what does challenge and competition feel like for a man in the workplace? Because I feel like
Yeah.
it allows women to understand maybe why men act the way they do sometimes.
Yeah. Because and we're taught this in an early age, right? Like, the more empathy you show as a man or sympathy you show as a man, you know, the less masculine you present, and those kind of things. We often think certain behaviors show that it show like a level of power or authority. There's this aspect to it. I think certain jobs exacerbate that. So if you're in sales, which is naturally competitive anyways, you know, there's a thing that comes out where, you know, the more confident or the more masculine that you present, the more, you know, people might gravitate towards that style of whatever it is. Whereas if a woman shows those same traits and it doesn't present as, and it presents as masculine in terms of the way it looks, those same behaviors are interpreted completely different from the woman, right? Like if you're aggressive sales person as a man, it's like, oh man, that guy's a go-getter. You know, he goes, you know, he does that. And so we play on that. But if it's the woman, it's like if you approach it that way, it's looked at as, you know, something very different. And so I think we take a lot of those behaviors in society and they manifest themselves in the work environment. But different roles, I think, make it worse than others. And then if you have a kind of personality that is such that you kind of exaggerate those masculine traits, or you associate those masculine traits with success, and then you're put in a position of authority and influence. So now you have an outsized influence over the environment that you're overseeing. Then those things can be even worse and make it so that everybody else has to mimic your behaviors. Therefore, it's harder for a woman to be successful in your purview than it is for a man, because the man presents these behaviors like you. You know, I see myself in you, you know, but you would never say that in a woman. You'd never say that to a woman because you literally would never see yourself in there. And so if seeing myself in a person is a unconscious bias in terms of making them more promotable, then I'm going to tend to promote people that I think have the traits to be successful, which won't be just by virtue of be existing, you know,
Yeah.
the woman. So, and when women pick this up, they feel like they got to now start acting like this in order to be heard and seen. And
100%.
So many time. We talk about it all the time, like for us as well, like how many traits have we picked up just from watching our male counterparts do the job as well.
Yeah, yeah.
But I've had this experience where what you're saying is totally true. And I have this experience at one of my jobs where I had a good relationship with a VP, but I was never given opportunities the way my counterpart males were given. And I started talking to him about it. And what I realized was he never talked to me the way he talked to the other guys.
Yeah.
And it was honestly, it was like out of respect. Like he was like an older gentleman. So he was brought up thinking that when a woman enters the room, you cannot curse. You have to act differently or behave more politely. And so he was never able to truly give me all of the feedback that he needed to give me in order for me to grow into a position that he would trust me with higher level projects.
Mm-hmm.
So at some point I had to tell him, like, look, you just have to start cursing at me. And not like because I want to be abused in the job, but if you are a cursor, you need to be an equal opportunity cursor across all of your organization, right? You cannot act different with me because then you'll never trust me to do the job. And that's what I'm here to do.
Yeah, and if you think about that, because you think it's respectful on one sense, but you have to go deeper, go 2-3 levels deeper. What that actually means is that, because he's looking for some innate traits, if there were one position open, you know, let's say you had 3, you're part of a group of 4 people, 3 of them are men, and you're the only woman, and he's doing this, and thinking, I totally respect you, and I will never, you know, do that and this. But when it comes time to a promotion, it's like, you know, because I can tell that person to go, you know, F and do this and F and do that, and let's get this, you know, let's get this stuff done, and you know, let's, you know, and they're like, yeah, let's go do that. I'm with that. I feel that energy, right? You don't even have an opportunity to do that. So this person gets to show out, and then they get promoted. Another one opens up. Yeah, you know, that gets promoted. And then with you, you're like, well, what can I do to develop? Well, you know, have you gone to check out the training classes that we have? And we have a video here, and you can go to this.
Or the worst part is like, no, you're doing fantastic. You're great. Like, you're not, you know, I got, you know, like you just keep working.
Keep working. You know, you just work so hard.
It's not working.
You know, you remind me of my sister, you know, that works hard, right?
It's either mother, sister, or daughter. That's what I hear.
Right.
Yeah, I can relate to that for sure. Where I hate to call it a bros culture, but it feels like from a women's
it
feels that way. You know, that's the prison I live out of, especially the recruiting world, is there's a lot of men, tons of men, right? And I've worked for bosses where they've told me F you to your face, like it's in that kind of environment. And then I've worked for bosses where just kind of like what Marina's saying, they tiptoe around the truth when I feel like, okay, in business, I've got thick skin, just give it to me straight. Like you can tell me so I can change it so we can move on, because it creates a resistance of inability to be just vulnerable and honest and real and like
Yep.
you're, Marina, creating a space for truth and trust. Yeah, it sucks. I think for women, Marina, what would you say for us women? What does competition feel like in the workplace? Competition or challenges?
I mean, like, I feel like, like without generalizing, like every woman obviously has like a little bit of male energy and female energy and things like that. So like, I'm definitely on the, like, I'm super competitive. So I'll go for it and I'll go at it, but not to kill, like
Mhm.
there's that like, stereotype or belief that men will go out there and no matter what happens, they will like take over anything, destroy anything in order to get that win. um I would stop. Like I would be like, no, I actually need other people to come with me. I definitely have more of a community sense and be like, I know I will never be able to do this alone, even if it means like faster and easier success, because it's hard to bring people along. It's hard to like socialize ideas and get everybody on board and get them all winning. And so I think that's one of the things that women do well, which is like bring people with them, that I've noticed at least.
Yeah. And I think an organization needs to, you got to incent the right behaviors, right? Because if you have a system that it incents people to kill at all costs, just get the sale, however many bodies are in the way, whatever, then people are going to do that. And that tends to fit more towards, that could be a more male dominated sort of deal. I think if leaders aren't intentional about, understanding that everyone on my team is different. So you have to be intentional. I have 10 people on my team. And when I have a team meeting, I'm very intentional about who the project teams that I create. I purposely mix people up with different skills and strengths that I think that they have. I will, when people do things, I acknowledge them in front of other people. Like when I know they've done something, acknowledge that to say this is behavior is a good thing. And that's agnostic of whatever gender that it's coming with, because that is anchored on our outcomes that we want, in there. And so you hold those people up. As a leader, if you're not thinking about this all the time, because you have to think about it all the time. You can't just walk into the office and then just do your work and then you just leave. You have to be thinking about it all the time, right? I have to take notes. Like when my people do a good job, I write it down. Even if it's a small thing, I write it down, so that I can talk about it later. So I can hold up different behaviors as what will make people successful here. And if you just let the powers that be or the energy of the industry or whatever take over, then it will be exclusive to a certain trait, and then unconscious bias or even conscious bias in some cases will take over, I think.
So I guess like the question for people that may like, I can see how some you guys in traditional industry may be like this is just like kind of like a man job, and like I don't see the point of changing. Like what could you say about what is the value of including others,
Yeah.
especially women, not only executive assistance position or marketing or HR, but mostly also in like strategic, P&L powered positions.
Yeah. If anyone says this is a male job, I'll show you a terrible organization. I don't care how successful they are. They could have been more successful if they didn't think that way, 100%. And the reason I believe this is because, what women and men think differently. And you can look at, politics in the sense of heads of state, and the way that people operate. Knowing what I know about organizations and seeing men and women at the highest levels of an organization, women and men think differently. One's not right, one's not wrong, but they just think differently. If you put a bunch of people in the room who think the same, and they came up in the organization the same way, or were hired under the same premises, then what you get is an echo chamber of a bunch of people that are just validating their own beliefs. Maybe there's some yelling and some, but at the end of the day, it's just validating your own beliefs. You have to put a woman in there if you care about having a different perspective.
At least one.
at least one.
85.
And I can tell you, like HR is mostly women, right?
Yeah.
You know, I've worked mostly with women, and so I'm a man, right? And so when I'm in the room and I bring a different perspective, I just do bring a different perspective, and that balance is very helpful. There's sometimes where you run into an employee situation with a woman where I'll actually recuse myself from the situation, have one of my team members who's a woman, and they're given the sensitivity of the situation and all that. It's like, we got to get the real here. And I'm not in a position to do that. And I think that a woman could more effectively do that. That's real.
Yeah.
And there may be situations that are the opposite, right?
Yeah, and vice versa. I was thinking, like, when I go in and explain why it's important to have women in the workplace, I feel like my message, especially for males that are more traditional, may not be as heard as you bringing your perspective in as a male HR leader and having the same affinity and delivering the same message. So I feel like there's definitely something to be said about who, like the carrier, and like who is providing the support.
Yep. And if I know that that's happening, if I know, like, yeah, I could probably have this more effective, that's actually an unacceptable situation to me. And so evolution is necessary. So I'm going to use my foot in the door, because to set up the stage to have a better, so let me introduce you to my teammate, right? Yeah. And so she is going to take over this project, and she is going to do the thing, right? So that's it. So don't talk to me, talk to her. If there's an issue, you can come talk to me, but talk to her, right? So, and there's that. You have to use that. You have to use your power, authority, whatever, influence to be able to evolve the organization. Because if I go into a place that's not inclusive in my organization, that's an organizational problem. I don't care how successful they are. Yeah. So how do I shake this up? Whether it's their talent development, talent acquisition practices, or just the way we work. I'm not going to be like, well, they like men over here, so let me just go talk to it. I'll go do that a couple times, but I'm not going to go. If I have to come in every time because they can't recognize the strengths and talents of the people over here, then that's actually this person isn't the problem, you're the problem. And so we have to fix it. Now oftentimes it may not be known or malicious, or sometimes it's unconscious, sometimes it's on purpose, but whatever it is, I don't care. You have to evolve that as an organization. If an organization isn't constantly evolving and critiquing itself and saying that's not what we want to be, doesn't fit us, change it, right? Even if it's over time, right? And use your power to do that.
Mm-hmm. Totally. How do we clone you? Or when is the book coming out? Whichever.
A lot of companies that would like to snag you. My gosh.
There's there's two different. I think there's a changing of the guard in HR. We don't all think this way, but there's a lot more of us who think this way because I've never fallen in love with any organization that I work with, and I don't say that to disparage any organization that I work with, because I like the organizations that I work with, but I don't fall in love with it because I want to be able to. It's about organizational effectiveness. It's like having you don't want a continuous improvement person being like, yeah, it's cool. We're cool now. We're good.
Yeah, we're good.
Like, you got to go, actually, because now you're not doing your job, even though you're good at what, that was. I think, there's that saying that what got you here won't get you there. Mm-hmm. Those who bring you candlelight don't bring you electricity. Mm-hmm. And so I feel like there's this old kind of guard of HR where we think the agent of the state. And that was good for, maybe sometime the 90s or whatever. But in an ever-changing, more global, diverse society, that doesn't work anymore. So those of us who understand that can learn from these folks, but we got to change it up. We can't do that. I have no desire to be an operational HR person. I want to be an agent of change and have a continuous improvement mindset on culture.
I like that a lot. And, I want to recognize the fact that there's still a lot of sexism in organization in corporate America. And one question that comes to mind is, what should women know about their rights when it comes to collaborating with HR if something happens. What are some of the rights that you can tell, like you can tell women or females that are in a hard situation, or even like males, because that may happen as well, right? Whenever like one of the gender is in a specific like um, um, what I'm trying to say, like difficult situation, what are some of the rights that they can use from an HR department that will be beneficial to them?
Yeah, well, the first thing I would say is you have a right to be who you are, right? To the extent that we're not violating any code of conduct, you know, whatever that is, you have a right to be who you are. Nobody has a right to make you feel uncomfortable in a pervasive way. So oftentimes we rub each other the wrong way. Maybe we had a meeting, it was contentious. Those kind of things happen, but no one has a right to tell you if on a regular basis someone makes you feel terrible about yourself because of what they're doing. No one has a right to do that. That's not a cultural thing. And if that is part of the culture, it needs to change because that's not good. And so you should stand up for yourself and say, I want to be treated in a different way. There's two levels to that. There's, you know, ultimately the most effective thing in all cases is to deal with the person who's doing that. That can be difficult because of power dynamics, you know, cultural things. Maybe you're new and you're just like, oh, I just got to deal with this, you know, and those kind of things. And so, you know, I recognize that that's hard, but ultimately the behavior changes with that person. But to the extent that you don't feel comfortable dealing with that person or having that conversation, an HR department should be able to, you know, whether it be a sounding board. What I like to tell people is one question I always have with people when they come and talk to me is, what is the outcome that you're looking for? Like you came to me, what is the outcome you're looking for from me? Is it help? Is it support? Is it, you want me to go after that, you know, thing? And I ask that question only unless I feel like, to the extent there's nothing illegal happening. If someone's telling me that they're being sexually harassed, like, you know, I'm gonna go, you know, the outcome you want, that joker's got to get out of here. If it's true, if we figure, if the facts play out that is true, then you got to go. But to the extent that it's like, I ran into something and I don't know how to deal with it, you know, because I would say, you know, I can give you advice on how to deal with that conversation, or I can have the conversation on your behalf. It does change the dynamics of things when someone out of nowhere is like, hey, that conversation I wasn't a part of, that you didn't even know I knew of, I'm telling you about it. It wasn't a good situation. I want to help solve it. So, and in those cases, I also coach the leader on this is, you know, because I'm very keen on retaliation. If you retaliate, not only are you putting my integrity and credibility on the line, you're putting the entire organization's credibility and integrity on the line. That's not your decision to make. Retaliation is the ultimate middle finger to the organization. After you were told not to do something and you went and you're going to go punish the person when you're the one who did something wrong. No, that's good. That is a, at least with me and the way I lead HR, you will find yourself out of the organ. I will advocate for your removal when you retaliate. So I make sure that people handle those conversations with professional maturity and care. So I can come in and help people in those conversations. Or have the conversation on behalf of the person, or we can partner together, right? Yeah. Like do a whole three-way mediated sort of deal. And again, this is to the extent that something illegal isn't happening. So I'm not going to coach someone to not sexually harass their colleagues.
What would you say in cases in which I feel like is super common, like the individual doesn't feel like they can trust their HR department because there may have been some history there, right? Mm-hmm. Where you know, they know of a colleague, or there's rumors about covering things up, or you know, even at times shushing the employee, and protecting, you know, some individuals. Like what tools could they use in order to make their voice heard?
Yeah, it's a good question because honestly, you know, some HR folks have completely compromised themselves. You know, they've drank the Kool-Aid. You know, I won't name companies, but there's clearly companies that you wonder how these environments were created. And it was because these HR folks. so when people in the organization see, you know, settlement after settlement after settlement, what that tells you is if you're being sexually harassed, we're actually kind of okay with that. I mean, we'll make sure it stops and that kind of thing, but to be clear, that person's more important than you. And that's a terrible message to send. And so when an HR department is completely compromised, oftentimes, I know not every company has one, you know, at a certain size, but an ethics line, because when you call an ethics line, they are typically set up to where it goes to an independent source. And then it goes to, you know, for Prologis, for example, if you call the ethics line, it goes straight to the board. It goes straight to the board. Wow. And the board puts together an investigative framework. And oftentimes I'm not even involved in the investigations there. So, wow. You know, and if someone calls the ethics line on HR, then I'm investigated by you know, different people. Or sometimes I'll get an ethics investigation, and when I get an ethics investigation, the rules have changed completely. There's a very specific, methodical, thoughtful way that ethics investigations are conducted, as opposed to kind of that ad hoc investigation that might be started from HR. And so if HR does have bias, yeah, you can't use it in an ethics investigation.
That's because it's government regulated, right?
Not necessarily. It's an apparatus that an organization puts in to have because you need a fail-safe, because people are biased in an organization. When you have an ethics hotline, a company doesn't have to, but if you are a publicly traded company, you absolutely have to, yeah, you know, have that, right? Like, you know, yeah. So there's rules to that. But if you're in a private company, you may not see an ethics line. I highly recommend that every organization of a particular size you got to have a fail-safe. You got to have a way, an end around HR. Because who's going to hold HR accountable? You know, if HR is the one and only, then you hope that your HR person has the right stuff. But to be honest with you, I'd be lying to you if I told you that every HR.
I mean, we've seen it. It's been in the Me Too. We've been in the paper.
They're not all worthy of trust. And so, you know, is there a board of director that you can talk to? Is there someone that you can get to advocate for you, like you're a leader's leader, you know, kind of thing. Your leader's leader, you know. Whatever it is it the legal team as opposed to the HR team? Right. Somebody that has an objective viewpoint outside of HR. If HR hasn't earned the trust that we need to have in order to be truly effective, then you got to have another place for people to go.
Totally. I love that tip. I think it's great. I don't know if everybody knows that. And I don't even know if my company has a hotline. I should know that.
If they don't, then ask them what happens if you know, the whole leadership hierarchy I don't trust, right? The whole leadership, and that includes HR, you know, what happens then? Am I to quit? Or what is it, you know, what's the message you send when it's like it's HR or bust, you know? In our handbook, we say you can talk to HR, you can talk to your leader, you can talk to your leader's leader, you can talk to legal, right? And so if you don't trust any of those, let's talk about that. Maybe you aren't at the right company. Maybe we're a terrible company and you need to go somewhere else because we haven't set ourselves up in the right way. It's all subjective on the person, right? Because a lot of people don't trust me just because I'm in HR. Like literally, I've done nothing, and they're just like, you just work for the man, so you know. I don't trust you. And I get that. So trust is earned in all cases.
Yeah, I know plenty of leaders. Like I know of a particular CEO that I'm thinking of. God, he has run into some challenge, not him personally, but his organization, his downline. I mean, the issues that have happened, I mean, harassment cases and just all this different shit that happens, you know, between people, right? The interpersonal conflict that can happen between people. And he is fully aware that people don't trust one another in his organization. And he has, I think he outsources HR, and he brought somebody in and he doesn't know what quite to do. And he's just like, okay. And sometimes he'll just fire people. If he can prove that they're causing conflict, he'll just fire them because he doesn't know what else to do. And I think it goes back to, okay, how do you help people understand one another, and how do you help people just feel more comfortable with conflict in the workplace? Those heavy emotions in the workplace, people don't know what to do with them when they feel them, right? And they certainly don't know how to do it at home and deal with it. So how do they deal with it in the workplace? They either
Yeah.
shut down or they.
Yeah. He's, the person that you're talking, he's playing whack-a-mole, right? Like he's just trying to solve micro level issues. If this is happening all over the place, he has a system problem. The system is creating that it is encouraging or not stopping conflict. You have it up from just without knowing the situation, you got leadership expectations that are maybe non-existent or very inconsistent, right? You have the way that we solve problems and conflict. We have no collaborative, value. Maybe you need to make collaboration a value, literally a value in the company, and you hire people on their ability to do that. Maybe one of your values needs to be trust, and then you have a complete reframing, a complete reset of your organizational culture. Like you literally have a culture reset. You think about it, right? Think about all those different things that you're rolling at, and you roll out different leadership expectations and competencies, and that, because it's gotten out of control. I mean, if you're just triaging the issues now, if you're just trying to solve them at a micro level, you just signed up for an indefinite task. You're probably you're probably not hiring for the right traits. You're not holding people accountable in a certain way. And that's not to say he's not trying. I'm sure he's tried different ways, but you got to look at it from a system standpoint. Outsourcing HR. So now the people who could help you do this aren't even sitting in your, so they're just dealing with the output of the culture as opposed to being like, whoa, wait a minute. Because I'll tell you, if I had like 6 employee relations issues in a row that were the same, I'd be like, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. Like, we've got to solve this downstream, because I do not exist to help adults figure out how to work with each other. Something's happening here, so let's fix it at the system level as opposed to fix it at the micro.
I like it.
Think big.
So the fact of the matter is there's not enough women in some of these male-dominated industries. How do we solve it?
Yeah, it's a tough solve, because a lot of them happen because of historical norms or historical thinking. A lot of people will say, and a lot of people will try to solve them at let's hold a seat for a woman. So you create a quota system, right? And so you say, like, okay, here's how we're going to solve them. You have to hire a woman in that role. And I say, if you're doing it that way, your system's messed up, because you're actually saying, I'm not going to change my talent acquisition practices. So I'm just going to create some artificial solution here. And then so when I solve it and I put a woman there, first of all, the burden of competence is now on this person like tenfold, because everyone's going to know, that you were only hired, whether or not you're truly competent for the role. But that aside, now you've filled that seat. Now we're going to go back to status quo. And then weeks later, we're going to be like, why can't we find any women? Change your practice. So understand, recognize, and call out that we all have bias. Full stop, period. You can't train it out of people, because we all have different bias. Full stop, period. So now that we've gotten that out of the way, let us create a system that mitigates the thing that we all have. Mm-hmm. So we get more to a skill-based, competency-based, organized structure, in which we do this. By the way, and then, Sasha, for you on the recruiting partner standpoint, I know something that we're really strong in is we want to see our recruiting partners, like our agency partners. I want to see what your diversity strategy is. Show it to me. And we have actually, in Prologis, stopped doing business with fantastic agencies that have proven results, that couldn't articulate for the life of them any competent diversity strategy. Because I want to know that you add to my capabilities, not just increase my recruiting bandwidth. So what that means is I want to know that you have access to communities and networks that I don't have access to, right? So for example, there's some agencies in Denver, where one of our biggest offices are, where their folks they actually host women in tech meetups, and they do a lot of community work. Their networks are, forget about LinkedIn. I mean, their networks are deep. I can't even recreate that. I'm like begging them to, like, please work with us. Like, I want access to your networks, because that's fantastic. I know that you're you are adding to my culture. And so now that I know that my net is wide and it's going to bring people in, I need to make sure that the filter that we're bringing people in is mitigated from bias. So you have to challenge your interview process. And don't, because a lot of people think they have great interview processes. They're not. They're sloppy. They're inconsistent. They're full of bias. People don't have interview guides. People, we're going to make our managers kind of put skin in the game. And when they get a candidate, produce three candidates. If one's a referral, fine, but then produce 3 candidates. Strength-based approach. If you're going to push to the interview loop, there's 5 people who are going to be interviewing after they get past the initial screen, then tell us what the strengths are of these people, strength-based. So you can't say, well, this person was okay and this person was okay, but Bob was amazing, right? Because you're trying to cake it on in there. You have to create this strength-based thing. So everybody equal, and I know if it's strength-based that you actually talked to this person, you actually went in depth with them, and you're actually telling me your editorialization of what their strengths are. Then the interview loop, the people who are involved in the interview, keep it small. You have 14 people on the interview loop, then you're not doing anything, right? Because if there's 14 people, half of these people's opinions don't matter, so move them out. Now you have 7. I bet you at least 2 don't matter, so move them out. Now you have 5. We have 5 people whose opinions matter, and assign them a competency or a skill or a strength so they can look at this person that are relevant to the job, so they can look at this person out of a different lens. And then the hiring manager is the decision maker, but the feedback that they get on the candidates that he pushed forward due to their strengths, now we're saying they're good on this competency, they're okay on this one, they're good, they weren't that good on this one, and they were good on this one. And then you're looking at the different candidates, and no one's giving you their bias, but they're looking at the skill. And then the manager has to make the decision on, okay, I can work with that mix of skill, because I've already endorsed these people. I can work with any one of these 3 people. So now it's on you. So what we did was we took the decision and put it between 6 people, and it was objective, right? So even if the manager were super biased, and I'm going to push these 3, but I really like this person, that's going to get mitigated once they get down to this place, because if everybody else is like, man, this person sucked at all of these different things, but this was the person that they wanted, and the manager's like, well, I'm going to go with Bob. The interview is going to be like, what? Like, I don't understand why when we told you these other 2 people. And so the manager is going to have to defend the bias decision that they make. The system mitigates it all. If you have a good system, you're going to get the diversity that you want. If you want to do the quota thing, it's not sustainable. It's not fair to the woman or the person of color. And you're going to be right back asking what the hell is going on and why can't you find diverse candidates and blah, blah, blah. Change your system and you'll get better results.
Love that.
Nice.
I love it. From a recruiting perspective, I actually just talked to a company. They're like a $10 billion med device company, huge. And they just input new KPIs around I&D. And they're wanting to leverage us just to kind of pipeline, diverse candidates, and they have no system in place whatsoever. So we're trying to guide them, but I really like that idea.
Yeah, because a lot of times you have to trust the system, but if the system trust, prove to me that, because when you break it down into competencies and you push candidates forward due to their strengths and require a minimum amount of candidates. Now, some jobs are easier and harder than others. Some of them it's hard to produce 3 candidates, but I'm just saying when you have multiple candidates and you push them forward based off of what the manager perceives as their strengths, then it changes the game. And when the filter is skill-based and people are looking at just particular, Uzo, you are interviewing on communication skills. So here are the questions that you can ask, and they are behavioral questions around skills. So I'm only talking about these things here. So then when I present to the interview loop, I'm like, strong here, strong here, in that, it does, I'm telling you, game changer.
I love it. Yeah, I use that a lot. And I find, actually, funny thing, I find myself having to reach out to my POCs network in order to fill in my pipelines and supplement my recruiting team that, because of ethnical differences, don't have the same access, which I find extremely annoying as a hiring manager, because then I'm like, you guys are not like, if I have to do all the work, then like, let me do your job, please.
Yeah. You know, I actually, because you have to have your tentacles in as many places as possible. So I actually, if you're my hiring manager, I'd be like, that is awesome. Now, hopefully I'm coming with, I should have the heavy, you know, from an imagery perspective, recruiting should be bringing the tanks and the, you know, and the heavy artillery. But, you know, if my hiring manager has access to networks, I want that too. Let's all go at it together. The way that we will find the most diverse candidates is if it's a
Join us.
SWAT team just going out there. But if we're just sitting behind LinkedIn, get out of here. You know, you're not going to get diverse candidates. Feet on the streets, go meet some people. And it starts before you even need a job. So if you have no open recs right now and you're doing nothing to kind of build community connections, diverse, I'm telling you, you're going to be sitting there weeks from now being like, why can't we find diversity? Because go work. Are you, go to, women in tech, go meetup.com and go look at these kind of things. Where can you show up in your brand? You got a little money for community engagement, go spend it without an expectation of immediate return. Go host a dinner or whatever in your office with no expectation. Like, why are you guys offering to do this? Because we like you, we like your mission, and we just want to be able to help. And so here. Do you want some resumes? No, like that's not what I'm asking for today. I want to create a relationship with you, and I got money, man. So let me know what you need, right? And so when you show up to an organization like that and build it over time, you won't even need to say. They'll be coming to you and being like, "Hey, man, do you have jobs?" Well, I'm glad you asked.
That's awesome. I love it. All right, we're closing out, Uzo. You ready? Last few questions.
Yeah.
What book have you gifted in the last few months or years? Your favorite book to gift?
My favorite book to gift is a book called Why We Work by Barry Schwartz. It's a small book. Mm-hmm. He's a professor. I don't know if he's still a professor at Swarthmore College in Philadelphia. But the reason I like Why We Work is because it talks about the change, because our work, we've built organizations around kind of the Industrial Revolution, right? Like where we almost treat everything like it's a production line. So we kill the innovation of people. You screw the widget on, you put the widget on this, you do this, that, and don't come out of that box. And so it talks about these very stiff and dated structures that we created in the work environment and what we need to do to create structures to unlock innovation. And I don't know that he would present the book this way, but it's kind of a structural introduction into inclusion, right? Like, because he's saying he's not saying build an inclusive environment, but he's kind of saying, if you want to unlock the potential of human beings, kill all of these old and tired structures and create something that actually incentivizes people to be creative and be on their own. And so through that book, it's an easy read, but through that, you think, because when I read that book, I was like, that is why this stuff doesn't feel right to me, because I'm facilitating this old school structure. Like, it was actually quite transformative to me. And I literally, so I went to a conference and watched him speak just very briefly about this book, and we all got, so it's like one of those things that you almost forget, but I read this book and I was like, this has changed my life.
Nice. Love it.
And so the way I look at HR and structures now really was based off of that. And so I recommend that book because it just gets you thinking, especially for HR nerds like me who think about it.
Well, any manager should probably read it.
Yeah, any manager, right? Because it makes you think about systems and like what doesn't work,
Yeah. What do men wish women knew about them at the workplace?
And we have feelings too.
Oh. Sasha, what do women wish men knew about us in the workplace?
Oh, that's a really good one.
That we got thick skin too.
We have thick skin too, and we're more than just our looks. And
that's nice.
Want to valid. We want to be seen for the true value we bring, and we live in we're raised to think that our primary value is just our looks alone, right? When it as we've evolved, it is more than that. It is more than that. So please just at least admire that and
Yeah. Recognize that you're the humanity. Don't say woman, Sasha, right? Like it's Sasha, full stop, right? And with all the things that come with that,
I
right?
love it. I love it. If there's one thing, just one, our public can take home from you today, like, and it's going to change them, be more inclusive, change maybe their IND practices. What is that one thing?
I would say the one thing is solve things at a system level. Oftentimes we're solving things at the wrong level and they never change. Take a full step back and be willing to be vocally self-critical about the things that you think make you awesome. Because maybe it's the one thing that's preventing you from evolving your culture to the way that you want. The behaviors that you show need to lead to the culture that you want. You can't behave one way and expected, a completely different culture. I don't care what your career website says. How do you act? Does the behavior that you show lead to the culture that you want? And does your system allow you to have the culture that you want? So look at systems and challenge systems.
Beautiful. Thanks,
Yeah.
Uzo. You're amazing. I'm waiting for the book to come out.
I ain't got time for that. I'm trying to save the world, man.
I see you in 5 to 10 years just speaking on stage to masses about this because it's so important. And in companies that die, they die because their systems are broken and your system.
Sure. I agree 100%. So can only solve the company I'm working for, but I think we can all learn from each other, right?
Absolutely. I love it.
Thank you for everyone that is watching or did watch or will watch. This was really exciting. It's just great to bring different minds together and have a quality conversation, and more to come.
Yeah.
More to come.
Sweet.
Awesome. Bye, guys. Bye. Until next time. Bye, guys.
Bye.
See ya.